about the novel The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. If you haven't read it, please read it. It's really a good book. Before we discuss about the content of the book, let us first know the author. Susanna Arundhati Roy. She's an Indian author, actress, and activist. She was born in 1961 and grew up in the Yemenim in the state of Kerala, India, which is also the setting she used in her novel, The God of Small Things. Kerala, according to Roy, was home of the world's greatest religions: Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, and Marxism. Roy's mother was a Syrian Christian and her father was a Bengali Hindu. At an early age, her parents divorced and her mother returned and wanted back to her parents' home, just like Amu in this story. At 16, she strived hard living in a squatter's camp in Delhi before taking an architecture apprenticeship, after which she earned her honors degree. After school, she took a small role in a movie and took a scholarship to Italy. She became a writer for film and then television. Then she wrote several articles about politics and Indian culture. In 1997, Roy published her debut novel, The God of Small Things. Her rich language and masterful storytelling earned her the prestigious Man Booker Prize for Fiction. In her novel, she interrogates the culture of her native India, including its social mores and colonial history.
The God of Small Things, written by Arundhati Roy, was published in the year 1997. The narrative of the novel kept on shifting from the past and present, which gave confusion at first. Events were gradually presented touching different minor stories, which made the whole big picture of the book. It talked about different aspects such as politics, religion, social norms and cultures within the characters and the world around them that makes connection between people and events. It mostly concentrated about the fraternal twins Rahel and Esther on how they perceive the world, how they deal with it, and how their life changed through time with those experiences. The twins came from an upper caste family who ran a pickle business in Yemen, Kerala. They lived with their mother Amu at their grandparents' house together with their grand-aunt and uncle. Different stories of each character were unveiled, which defined their present status in life and how their relationship with each other went. The gender roles also included on how a man and woman is treated within their family. Most characters showed dynamic characteristics throughout the novel, and then that most of them also the reason why their family was in peril and how such things ended in a way. Although people in Kerala were already divided in religion, the caste system was still imposed regardless of their religious affiliation. The novel talked about love laws, which meant these laws were laid down who should be loved and how much as described in the book. And disobeying this will result to unwanted consequences. And lastly, about disobeying social conformities, mainly about their culture like whom to marry, what a person must do with concern to their caste, in which if not followed, one might face their punishment.
Now, let us discuss the conflicts. We have found 3 conflicts. First, man versus man. It is between the EP family from the upper class and the untouchables Vilutha and his father Vila Paapin. Next is the man versus society, or it can be man versus circumstance. It is between Amu and Vilutha's love that is not acceptable because they are from different castes. And that is all for the conflicts. For the foreshadowing, I will discuss 3. First is when Rahel and Esther slept with their arms together and dreamt of the river. This foreshadows the incident in the river with Sophie Moll. Next is when Amu dreamt of a cheerful man with one arm who held her close by the light of an oil lamp. This dream foreshadows the death of his loved Vilutha. Next is the loss of Sophie Moll. In this statement, we can say that Sophie Moll will die in the next chapters. This is flashback. So, this story is a non-linear narrative and it consists of series of flashbacks through a progressive regressive movement. Every character that has something to do with Rahel and Asta has their own series of backstory. Now, the 5 flashbacks. First is when Rahel mentioned the memory about Orange Man Lemon Drink Man and Asta. Next is when Rahel remembered how Sophie Moll died in the river. Next, the scene between Baby Kuchama and Father Mulligan spending time with each other. Fourth, Sophie Moll's funeral. Fifth, when Amo ran away from their home and found her husband but turned out to be a drunkard. For the allusion, I will only mention few of them. So first, in the literary allusion, there is the mention of The Heart of Darkness, A Tale of Two Cities, Hansel and Gretel, The Great Gatsby, Charles Dickens, Homer, The Odyssey, The Brothers Grimm, Water Music, The Tempest, Love in Tokyo, and the English Car Song sung by the twins Rahel and Esta, and lastly is the Fisherwoman's Song to a Young Bride. Next is the historical allusions. So I will only tackle 3 or mention 3 of them. First is the mention of Karl Marx joining palms to greet rich guests as they stepped off the boat. Next is the mention of the American Neil Armstrong, the first man to walk on the moon. And last is the Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India. So those are the 3 men that are from the history that are tackled in the novel. Last allusion is the religious allusion, and we only found one religious allusion, which is the prayer during Sophie Moll's burial. Down to the cultural implications. There are many cultural implications, but I will only tackle a few of them. First is the very eminent caste system, the love law. Kottayam police don't take statements from Veshyas or their illegitimate children. And if you are poor and don't have money to raise a suitable dowry, no proposals will come. And college education is unnecessary for girls. And instead of studying, they will just wait for a marriage proposal. Next is, untouchables were not allowed to walk on public roads, not allowed to cover their upper bodies, not allowed to carry umbrellas, because they had to put their hands over their mouths when they speak to divert their polluted breath away from those who they addressed. It's very sad.
In understanding what the twins Rahel and Esta represents, we have to take into consideration that both of them were united during childhood and were separated because of the crisis that has happened to their family, which left them no choice but to accept the fact that they are going to be separated. And with this being said, there's little to no chance at all that they will still be the same person they once knew before they parted ways. As for me, I believe that the two of them, Rahel and Esta, represents what any other twins or siblings have in common, which is what we call a special bond or that special connection. There has always been a link from that of Rahel and to Esta, from that of the twin and to the other twin. Just like, for example, a conjoined fruit that is whole at first, but when one starts to make alterations, when one starts to divide them, it will no longer be united. It will no longer be a whole piece of fruit, thus creating a change in both of the fruits, and the scar will always be evident, where it stands as a painful reminder of what one has been through. Yet, the fruit still tastes the same. Although they are twins, Rahel and Esta, both are still very different from each other, just like how they see things and how they react or how they act. Esta is serious and earnest and seems to be the better behaved, while Rahel, on the other hand, always became preoccupied with things and can't seem to sit still. Now, when Rahel came back to Yemenem to see her twin Esta, they don't even have to speak to acknowledge the other's presence. Well, not that Esta would speak anyway these days, because as we all know, Esta stopped talking when their family split. The twins knew that they still had an innate sense of being completed by each other. I think for me, maybe this certain completeness also sort of explains why Esta and Rahel slept together at the end of the book. Although the idea of incest may be alarming or uncomfortable, but in the story, Rahel and Esta being together makes the two have a complete whole. Now, when it comes to Veluta's role on the lives of the twins, both Rahel and Esta sees him as their best friend, even though Veluta is only 3 years younger from their mother, Amu. Veluta is said to be the one who symbolizes the god of small things, and to me, they seems to be like a two-way street. One would be literal and the other is figurative. Now, for the literal part, it is because Veluta, as a kid, he used to make little wooden toys for. On the other side, Veluta also symbolizes the god of small things as he enters the world of Rahel and Esta and fills it with innocence and joy. So, not only does Veluta play a huge part on the lives of the twin, but to Amu as well. Veluta, we all know that Veluta belongs to the Untouchables. It is the lowercase system in Yemenem. And Amu and Veluta's relationship broke down the social barrier and the love laws that are preceding their country. Even though Veluta knew very well that by choosing to disregard the societal rules in favor of love is ultimately his downfall. And however much we think it is the right one for him, the right decision for him, but still, it will be his downfall. Because during that time, it was not allowed, it was really a societal rule to not be in love with someone who is of lower status than you are. It is true that by our standards, Veluta doesn't do anything wrong by loving Amu and vice versa. Yet, his social standing allows him to be the easy target of the upper class in the case system when Veluta was beaten up by the police officers. And also, his death is shaped by his social class just as his life.
Arundhati Roy's The God of Small Things is quite intriguing and controversial. Personally, I like this story because of the language and the descriptions that Arundhati Roy used in her story. We see it is not just love that is forbidden by law, but it also works throughout their family. There are different forbidden love in the story that you can find or you can observe. For example, as Amu and Veluta, because of their social status, or because that time the caste system is still present. And then here comes baby Kuchama to Father Mulligan, who is a priest that can never marry. And then here is another one, Mama Chi to her son Chaco, that also blur the line of familial and romantic love. Lastly, Ista and Rahel's that happened at the last part of the story, resulting in the taboo of incest. And now let's
let's talk about the themes of the story. First, once you are poor, you don't have the power to defend your innocence. Like for Avaluta, he is intentionally accused by Mama Chi, Baby Kuchima, and Inspector Thomas as the one who kidnapped the kids. Even though they already knew the truth, still they used him and blamed him to cover up their mistakes. Now, being an untouchable, he has no power or right to defend his innocence. And next, we have people tend to break the rules to search for their own happiness, like Amu and Beluta. Despite the fact that society will not approve their relationship and it is against their culture, still they love each other and meet each other. And next we have even the smallest action has a big effect in our lives. And because of the love of Amu and Beluta, it really affects a lot in their family relationship, the trust, and even it breaks the rules of the caste system. And also, it really results to hatred, which really affects especially the queens, right? Lastly, a person who has a money and power can sometimes control people and circumstances, and this is the case for Baby Kuchuma using Esta and Rahel to blame Veluta in kidnapping them, and for Mama Chi controlling the lives of Villa Papin and Veluta's life as well. And for Inspector Thomas, he used his power to blame Veluta, and in the end Veluta was accused, tortured, and died as being an innocent person. Now for the implication of the title. The God of Small Things represents Veluta being in love with Amu despite the fact that society will not approve their relationship, especially Amu's family. Now, since it is against the caste system, they meet each other secretly without even thinking of the future or the big things, knowing that there will be no future for them. That's why in the end, Veluta was intentionally accused, tortured, and died being an innocent. Now, that really implies that even the smallest action has a great effect in our lives. The novel represents India as it resonates with the political and social issues that happened before in India, and especially the caste system and the love loss, which interprets the caste system to explore who is allowed to love, to whom, how, and how much. And for the political issues, it is particularly based on Marxism and activism, since Roy Arundhati is an activist who writes and speaks the truth concerning on the environment, non-violence, and human rights.
This story is spectacular, so I would definitely recommend this story, though there are some scenes in the story that are disturbing and are not suitable for those readers who are not that open to this kind of topic. I want this to recommend to my friend who is fond of reading as well, and she likes it when I recommend her something to read, and this will definitely get her attention, especially that she's into this kind of topic, and she's into this kind of scenarios that she wanted to read those stories that are mind-blowing, and she wanted to read those stories that lessons are not the only thing that you can get from the story. This story is something that everyone should read because it is not only about love, it does not only talks about love, problems, some sort of problems, but it also talks about the government, the politics, that people usually do not act rationally, and this represents reality. The story represents reality, though it is in the form of fictional story, but still you can see that it reflects society, especially in India.
And for my comment, The God of Small Things is not a typical type of novel, and it is really worth to read. And I appreciate how Arundhati uses a series of flashbackings, though sometimes it leads to confusion, especially when did it happen and where. And this novel also help us to discover more about the Indian cultures, the familial duty they had, the social obligations, and their personal interests. For my stand about the love loss, I am against with that kind of practice, knowing that love is being neglected and deprived. I believe that each person deserves to be loved without borders, and every one of us has the right to choose who to love and how much and how can we love them back. Now, love is all about affection, willingness, and without forcing someone. Though we cannot say that this love loss in India is a bad practice, since that is already part of their culture, and I respect that. But it really depends on how the family or parents handle this kind of practice. If I'm going to recommend this book, I'll recommend it to my best friend Cheryl Gig, and I know that she will love it, and it's really worth to read this novel, The God of Small Things by Roy Arundhati.
Reading the novel, I have realized that being in a caste system is very difficult, especially for women, because they think that women are inferior than men. And women only wait for marriage proposals to come to them. And also, it's very difficult to be part of the untouchables because they are degraded. They don't have human rights because they are untouchables. I recommend this novel to everyone so that we will all know how caste system works and the cons of having a caste system in the society. Many are not given opportunities because of this caste system. So I hope that through reading this novel, you can learn something about what is happening around us.
I would recommend this book to those who like mystery, tragic, or historical fiction because there are a lot of discussion about Indian social issues. So if you're interested in that, this one's for you. Personally, I found this book to be very compelling, beautiful, sad, but with rich imagery. Overall, it's an excellent tragic book with unforgettable characters that is definitely worth the read.
I'd like to recommend this novel to a high school friend of mine because I believe that she is fit to understand and be able to take in the plot of the story, since I know that this novel is a bit too uncomfortable to some readers, especially to the young minds. So I would like to recommend this to her since I believe that she is old enough to understand the scenarios mentioned in the book. This novel can also challenge her understanding to not just tackle for the surface but also to the deeper meaning, and if it is really true that the social rules will always do us good. When talking about the love laws, my stand on love law rests particularly on this ground between Amu and Valusa. Honestly, I see nothing wrong with Amu and Valusa's relationship, but We have to take note that this happened in a caste system society, making people appear superior from others. I firmly believe that society's rules sometimes destroy a person. They cage people into being pretentious, shutting down their happiness and covering it with a fake smile. People just don't understand unless they've been through with the same experience. Nothing is wrong with Amu and Veluta's love for each other, and it doesn't mean just because Veluta is of lower class and he can't love someone from a higher class. No, that's unacceptable. We are free to choose whom we want to spend the rest of our lives with. Society cannot dictate who we shall love. It is our decision, our own decision to make. People who are butting into our lives only makes the situation worse.
If I were to abide or transgress the love law, I would rather abide it. Because disobeying it will cause many damages and it will affect my life and my relationship with my family and people that surround me. I don't want to be selfish and follow my own desire because I don't want to make my family's name got tainted because of love. I don't want people to degrade my family because of my own decision. It might sound like being coward, but it's actually a sort of sacrifice for loving more my family than my own sake. I will let go of that desire to love someone above me or below me because I don't want the future generations in my blood will commit the same mistake and ruin everything that remains. I don't want to be the reason of my family's downfall, and committing such huge mistake will equate to huge punishment. I'll recommend this book to my best friend Angelica because I want her to discover the Indian life, such as their culture and society, especially their stand in love, and learn from it.